Eliza Hale tightened the strap on her worn backpack as she stepped off the bus, her heart thudding in her chest. The towering glass facade of Pulse Elite Gym gleamed under the afternoon sun, its modern lines and shimmering surface a stark contrast to the faded streets she knew so well. She smoothed the sleeves of her faded cardigan, aware that her thrifted jeans and scuffed sneakers made her look out of place among the sleek, well-dressed crowd entering the building. Carefully clutching the small plastic card in her hand, a day pass she had painstakingly saved for over months, Eliza took a deep breath. She had been dreaming about this moment for years, a chance to step inside the city's most exclusive fitness club, to breathe in its luxury and experience something ordinary only in the distant reaches of her imagination. Her shift at the community center janitorial job had left her exhausted, but today was different. Today was her day. Inside, the atmosphere hit her immediately. The subtle scent of eucalyptus and polished leather mingled with the hum of high-end equipment. People moved with practiced ease, their expensive workout gear gleaming under the bright, rare light. Eliza felt the weight of her simplicity crushing her chest. At the reception desk, she cleared her throat nervously, her voice trembling just slightly. "I'm here for a, day pass," she said, stumbling over the word membership. The young man behind the desk barely looked up before smirking and calling out loud enough for others to hear, "Day pass? Aren't you a little out of place here?" A ripple of laughter and stares followed. Mr. Carlyle, the gym's owner, appeared beside the desk with a cold smile. "We don't usually see people like you in Pulse Elite," he said, his tone sharp and dismissive. Eliza's cheeks burned as the room seemed to close in around her, every eye fixed on her trembling figure. The humiliation was immediate, stinging sharply beneath the polished lights of the gym. Eliza's heartbeat thundered against her ribs as Mr. Carlyle's cold words echoed in the glistening hall. The smirks and whispered snickers of the well-dressed patrons pressed down on her like a physical weight. Some patrons exchanged amused glances, others saw her discomfort and quickly averted their eyes, uncomfortable with the spectacle. The once vibrant atmosphere of Pulse Elite Gym now felt hostile and suffocating. She swallowed hard, willing her throat to stay dry. For a long moment, she simply stood there, frozen at the sleek marble counter, clutching her thin plastic pass as though it were a fragile lifeline. Then, with a quiet breath that was almost a sigh, Eliza turned away. Her feet, heavy but determined, carried her toward the exit, disregarding the stares and suppressed laughter following her retreat. She did not look back, not even as a nearby member muttered, "Good riddance." Outside, the biting chill of the late afternoon air was a sharp contrast to the stifling tension she'd just left behind. She paused on a cold metal bench lining the gym's exterior wall, her palms pressed tightly against the chipped paint. The card in her hand felt suddenly useless. She stared down at it, the disbelief knotting deeper in her stomach. How could a small piece of plastic embody such a dream, and such rejection? Memories swirled unbidden, each one a marker of her journey to this day. She recalled the countless hours cleaning the community center, scrubbing the sticky floors after noisy basketball games and enduring the smell of spilled soda and forgotten lunches. Most days, she couldn't afford more than a sandwich she tore into during 10-minute breaks. On days she skipped lunch, her stomach ached, but the thought of saving even a few extra dollars pulled her onward. She remembered the quiet evenings spent balancing bills and pinching pennies, often sacrificing little joys, a worn book she wanted, a bus ride taken to visit a distant cousin, so she could stash away a few coins. The shrinking jar on her tiny kitchen counter had become a symbol of hope. She would let nothing stop her from this one moment, walking past those sleek glass doors to hold her place where health, confidence, and belonging seemed to glow like lit jewels behind every fiber. Flashes of encouragement lined the edges of her memory. Her mother's voice, soft but fierce, reminding her that no matter where life took her, she deserved dignity and happiness. The time she recovered breathlessly from illness, when doctors said she might never run again. This visit was more than a day pass, it was a defiant declaration of strength, a tribute to resilience. And now, it felt like all that hope had shattered. Her breath hitched as she blinked back sudden tears, unused to such overt humiliation. No one should feel this small in their own pursuit of joy. Not after everything endured. She pressed her palms harder against her face, then wiped the dampness away, anger and sorrow twisting inside her in equal measure. Yet beneath the hurt, a quiet pulse of determination kept beating steady. She hadn't come this far to crumble. This was her fight now, the right to be seen, to be treated as someone valuable rather than an oddity or nuisance. The pain was real, but so was the spark rising from it. As the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows along the cracked pavement, Eliza hugged her jacket tighter around herself and stood slowly. The card that once felt useless now seemed like a challenge, a reminder that barriers existed but were not insurmountable. The city lights began flickering on, and with each step away from the gym, Eliza carried the weight of a silent promise. Today's rejection had hurt, yes, but it would not define her. Somewhere in the labyrinth of hard days and quiet battles, a new resolve started to form, stronger and sharper than before. Eliza Hale would return. Not just for herself, but for others who deserved to walk through those doors without facing scorn. For now, though, she simply walked onward, the chill of the evening warming slightly with a new fire inside. Her journey, though bruised at the start, was only beginning. Eliza walked past the front of Pulse Elite Gym, her footsteps echoing softly against the pavement. Although the brisk evening air tried to lull her into retreat, her mind hummed with a restless energy. The sting of humiliation ate at her, but she refused to let it be the final note of this day. She wasn't sure yet exactly what she could do, but something inside urged her to look closer before she left entirely. Her eyes caught a small side door, partially obscured behind a row of perfectly manicured shrubs. It was marked with a green and white sign, "Emergency Exit." Though the gym's glossy facade might suggest sleek perfection, this modest door looked neglected, a simple metal handle dulled with rust and a worn, "Keep Clear" sticker curling at the edges. Curious despite herself, Eliza moved closer. As her hand reached out to inspect the door, a cluster of voices drifted faintly through the thin wall. She stepped quietly aside and peered through a nearby window, catching snippets of a staff discussion. The words made her stomach tighten. "No one knows the fire drills properly," a young worker said nervously. "We're not even certified for the safety courses yet. The last inspection was postponed." Another voice, harsher, replied, "Don't mention that to anyone. If the gym closes, we all lose our jobs." Eliza's brows furrowed. She glanced back at the locked emergency exit door nearby. It was secured with a heavy padlock and chain, clearly preventing any quick escape if an emergency arose. Her pulse quickened. This was dangerous, not just careless. She took out her phone and snapped a few discreet photos, careful not to attract attention. She knew what she had just encountered went beyond her personal humiliation. It was an issue that could affect everyone inside that gym. Quietly, she typed up a brief message outlining what she had seen: a locked emergency exit, lack of proper fire safety certifications, and worried employees. She sent the email directly to the city's fire department contact she had found through a local government website. Her fingers trembled slightly as she crafted a second message, this time to a well-known journalist who had written about public safety before. Eliza kept it factual and concise, including the photos as evidence and noting the urgency of the situation. She didn't mention her own experience inside the gym or the owner's cruel remarks. This was about more than that. Her heart thrummed with a strange mixture of hope and nervousness. What might come from this? She had no way of knowing if anyone would act, but in this moment, by stepping up, she reclaimed a tiny portion of her dignity and strength. It was a quiet rebellion, one born from the pain, but driven by compassion and responsibility. Eliza stayed near the side entrance for a few more moments, watching as the last gym members trickled out, some laughing and chatting, oblivious to the risks behind those locked doors. She noticed a janitor arriving to clean outside, nodding politely as their eyes met, no doubt another person who'd seen life's harder edges. As the evening shadows deepened, Eliza folded her phone into her pocket. The weight on her chest lifted slightly, replaced by a growing determination. The gym's glittering exterior couldn't mask the cracks underneath. Not in her eyes. And not anymore. Slowly, she turned away from the building, her stride steadied, carrying with her not just the sting of rejection but the quiet power of someone who refused to be ignored. Sometimes, courage doesn't roar loudly. Sometimes, it whispers. Eliza Hale's whisper had just begun. Within days of Eliza's discreet but determined action, a ripple began to grow in the city's digital currents. The video captured by a bystander during the humiliating encounter at Pulse Elite Gym was uploaded and shared widely across social media platforms. The gym owner's sharp dismissal and the uncomfortable crowd's reaction were laid bare for millions to see. The clip struck a chord not because it showed scandalous behavior, but because it revealed something familiar to many: the sting of exclusion, the pain of being judged for simply existing in a space deemed not for you. As the video amassed 3 million views in less than a week, the story went viral. Commenters empathized with Eliza's quiet resilience. Others recounted their own experiences of subtle cruelty and outright snobbery in high-end environments. Some profiles shouted words of support: everyone deserves respect, no one should be made to feel less because of their appearance or job, Pulse Elite needs to answer for this. Threads snowballed, sparking broader conversations about privilege, inclusion, and the barriers ordinary people face in places built for the privileged few. Meanwhile, the authorities had already taken note of Eliza's fire safety complaint. The city's fire department sent inspectors to Pulse Elite Gym promptly, verifying the locked emergency exit and discovering several serious violations. Heavy fines were levied, and the gym was temporarily ordered to close its doors until essential renovations and safety upgrades were completed. The public health department echoed the concerns, emphasizing that such lapses endangered not only members but staff as well. The gym's management scrambled to control the damage. Mr. Carlisle released a carefully worded statement online, expressing regret if anyone felt unwelcome, but avoiding any direct apology to Eliza. A public relations team promised a review of staff training and policies to enhance inclusion and customer experience. However, the vague language only fueled more criticism. Under mounting pressure, Pulse Elite suspended Mr. Carlisle pending an internal investigation, a move many saw as overdue. Behind closed doors, employees whispered about his brusque attitude and dismissiveness that had long gone unchecked. The owner's silence on social media contrasted sharply with the growing calls for change. As messages flooded in, Eliza's phone buzzed with an overwhelming wave of encouragement. People from all walks of life, strangers and friends alike, sent words of kindness, admiration, and solidarity. Invitations came from community groups and advocacy organizations seeking her voice in forums about equality and safety. Her simple act had sparked something larger, a movement of dignity for the often overlooked. Encouraged by this support, others who had experienced similar subtle exclusions stepped forward, sharing their own stories of being belittled or ignored in places designed for the privileged. This collective testimony pressured institutions to reassess their culture and practices. Eliza remained humble, focusing on the meaning behind the attention rather than the spotlight itself. Through her courage, she helped carve a space for honest dialogue about respect and fairness, proving that even the smallest voices could echo loudly when joined by many. In the weeks that followed, changes began filtering into the community. Businesses with high-end reputations faced demands to be more transparent and inclusive. Safety regulations became a focus nationwide, spurred by increased public awareness. Pulse Elite Gym, once a fortress of exclusivity, found itself at the center of a social awakening. The cruel treatment Eliza endured had ignited a spark that no amount of polished marble or expensive equipment could extinguish. And within that, Eliza Hale found a measure of restoration, not just for herself but for others who dared to dream beyond the barriers of their circumstances. The world was shifting, and she had helped guide the course, step by courageous step. Weeks passed, and the routine of Eliza Hale's life settled back into its familiar rhythm. She arrived at the community center early each morning and left long after the last echoes of laughter and footsteps had faded. Her clothes remained modest and worn, yet there was a subtle difference in her posture, a newfound strength in her step and a quiet fire in her gaze that wasn't there before. The days hadn't erased the sting of that sharp moment inside Pulse Elite Gym, but neither had they allowed it to define her. One afternoon, as she wiped down the cafeteria tables, her phone buzzed with a message that made her pause mid-swipe. It was an email from a city council member she had never met but who had been following the viral story closely. The letter was warm and sincere, commending her courage and moral clarity in standing up not just for herself, but for the safety and dignity of all community members. The council member invited her to speak at an upcoming public forum focused on workplace respect and public accessibility. Eliza read and reread the letter, a quiet smile spreading across her face. She typed a gracious reply, accepting the invitation with sincere humility. On the same day, an unexpected letter arrived from Pulse Elite Gym's management. It was a formal apology, acknowledging the inappropriate treatment she received and expressing a commitment to fostering a more inclusive environment. The gym also announced the launch of a new scholarship program aimed at making their facilities accessible to people from diverse socioeconomic backgrounds, including those who, like Eliza, had long admired but never entered the gym's doors. Though part of her bristled at the thought of accepting their overture after such cold dismissal, Eliza chose to respond with grace. Recognizing that acknowledgement, even if belated, was a step toward healing, she sent a thoughtful message wishing the gym success in making real change. One evening, wrapped in her favorite cardigan, Eliza walked past Pulse Elite Gym as the sunset painted the city's skyline in fiery hues. The gym's windows reflected the warm light in a softer way than before. She noticed news signs posted near the entrance boasting updated safety certifications and a clear statement about the club's dedication to inclusivity and community support. Workers moved busily inside, painting and installing new safety equipment. The sleek building still looked intimidatingly elegant, but those hard edges seemed less cold now. Eliza paused, allowing herself a moment of quiet satisfaction. This space, once a symbol of exclusion and pain, was becoming a place slowly reshaped by voices like hers. Not by wealth or status, but by courage. Later that week, she sat in her cozy kitchen, the hum of the old heater blending with the scent of chamomile tea steeping in a simple mug. Her friends gathered around the small table, laughter spilling easily as they shared stories and toasted to small victories. Although her life remained far from extravagant, in this moment Eliza felt a deep calm and fulfillment. She had fought not for grandeur, but for dignity, and she had won. Her story was no longer just about rejection or hurt. It was about resilience, about the power of one quietly brave woman to shift the course of many lives. She hadn't needed status or fine clothes to change the world around her. She only needed courage. And that was more than enough.